There have always been unexplained tales of unusual flights and bizarre phenomenon in aviation, but very few are as bizarre as the one we're going to look at today. Previously on this channel, we've discussed the Bermuda Triangle a few times, but now we're going to dive into one specific story in detail. At first glance, there would be nothing to distinguish between this particular Beechcraft Bonanza A36 and its many siblings. Well known as a reliable small aircraft, it was considered a workhorse. However, on December 4th, 1970, this particular aircraft would cross the Bermuda Triangle and undergo something truly unique and terrifying. Although our story starts in 1970, it didn't achieve wider fame until 1977, when Charles Berlitz wrote a book called Without a Trace. This book went into some detail about specific disappearances and instances of the Bermuda Triangle interfering with ships and aircraft. Charles Berlitz was an author who had heavily investigated the paranormal. He wrote around 13 books on various topics from the Bermuda Triangle to Atlantis to the Roswell incident. Without a Trace was actually his second book on the Triangle. His first book was just called The Bermuda Triangle. Now, despite being one of the more harrowing tales, it was largely lost to history until a website called bermudatriangle.org brought it to a wider audience, almost 30 years after the initial incident. Since then, the pilot himself has written a few books about what occurred as well. What he went through and what he discovered is astounding. So to start off our story, picture it. It's the middle of the afternoon of December 4th, 1970. You're standing on Andros Island, and it's gorgeous, mostly undeveloped island located in the Caribbean that's actually the largest island in the Bahamas. With Bruce as his father and Chuck Lafayette, his father's business partner. They all work in real estate. Even though Bruce was young, he already racked up over 600 hours of flight time, so he was very careful to follow his pre-flight checklist. Once he finishes with that and everything is in order, he proceeds to taxi down the runway and take off. They had no idea what they were in for as they took off into the calm blue sky. Although they noticed an odd little shaped cloud that didn't think much of it given the favorable weather reports. However, as they climbed steadily at a rate of 1,000 feet per minute, the lentil-shaped cloud was evolving into a cumulus cloud that soon surrounded them. Although they kept climbing it, it wasn't until they reached an altitude of approximately 11,500 feet before they broke past it to see the blue skies again. At this point, Bruce decided to increase his speed to 195 miles per hour. When he turned to look behind him through the cumulus cloud, it was shifting again into something that looked like a Pac-Man, but again, he dismissed it since it seemed like it was clear all the way home to Miami. The trouble appeared to be well behind them at this point. Just as they were flying over the Bimini Island, home to the infamous Bimini Road, trouble struck again. A massive cloud formed in front of them. It was dark, menacing, and appeared to reach at least 60,000 feet in altitude. It seemed to swallow everything from the earth to the sky. Now, despite being so dark, there was no rain, so this was strange to Bruce. He also noticed there were eerie white flashes that weren't like any lightning he'd ever seen. Bruce was a little nervous, understandably, at this point, so he banked and made a turn, hoping to find a way out of the cloud. He flew for 27 minutes straight before he realized that the cloud was the inside of the Pac-Man's mouth. It was over 30 miles wide, too. It seemed like the cloud was a cage, but when he had flown for an additional 13 miles, he saw an opening and he went after it. While he was trying to escape the cloud, it had shifted in the shape again, and what initially been a U-shape was now a perfect circle about 1 mile wide and 10 miles long. It also appeared to be closing. It also appeared to be shorter than Bruce thought, since it was only a mile, not 10 miles like he thought. He tried to increase the speed, and according to his instruments, at this point, He was going 230 miles an hour. At this point, Bruce was rewarded with breaking free of the cloud. However, there was an odd sense of weightlessness as they broke through the phenomenon, which Bruce found odd at the time. Although free of the cloud, Bruce wasn't free yet. The plane was surrounded by fog and the instruments began to malfunction. It was now that he contacted Miami and gave them what he thought was their location. Miami told him that he was not on the radar at all. At this point, there was clearly something weird going on in the fog. In the fog, they had around 2 miles of visibility, and yet they couldn't see the ocean or the sky. Yet it was completely dry, and the instruments were going haywire. It seemed like there was no hope for them when just then the radio came on, and it was Miami telling them they had just identified an aircraft flying over Miami Beach. What was weird is they should have not have been approaching Miami given their flight time. It was at that point that the instruments on the plane began acting normal again. At this point, Bruce was just grateful to be alive. They eventually landed in Palm Beach like they had intended. However, Bruce noticed a few things. Usually it took around 75 minutes to fly home, and they had only been flying for 47 minutes. Plus, the flight they had taken had only used about half the fuel it usually consumed. These were glaring and unexpected anomalies that he just couldn't explain. Bruce eventually named this the electronic fog because of how badly it interfered with the instruments on board. As time passed, Bruce eventually decided that in spite of how it sounded, maybe the Bermuda Triangle was some kind of possible time warp. It was the only concept that seemed to fit the facts. Since the facts seemed to show that it had somehow traveled 100 miles in just under 4 minutes of flight, what else could it possibly have been? Over time, he was able to uncover other pilots who had experienced what he had experienced, which he went on to document in his books on the electronic fog. He believes this is a type of wormhole. You may remember this concept from Thor, but it would be a type of Einstein-Rosen bridge. They are a type of shortcut through space and time. Although this sounds like something out of science fiction, it is in fact a well-respected scientific theory. This well-respected theory had been used to talk about things that seem like something out of science fiction. Things like time travel, faster than light travel, and even allow us to travel through the multiverse. It would seem like it could explain what Bruce experienced that day. Some physicists such as Kip Thorne have been suggesting that it may be possible to create these wormholes artificially. Kip Thorne is a very interesting physicist to look into since he is willing to look at the implications of these theories and extrapolate them outward. Could Bruce be right? Is there something in the Bermuda Triangle that is causing there to be one of these bridges that would wreck so many aircrafts and ships over the years? Did he just get lucky? As the Einstein bridges are theoretical, there could be one there we just can't detect using today's technology. Once we can detect them, the census is soon by the way. Someone should undertake a serious exploration of the area to determine what, if anything, is there. Given all the ship disturbances, they should also look beyond the skies. Then the question would be, was it naturally occurring or had someone created it? The answer to these questions would change everything if what we know about our history. Although there was recently been a theory known as the Alcubierre Drive, which is designed to allow us to travel faster than light and visit other stars, we may never know the truth about the Bermuda Triangle unless and until a serious scientific exploration is done. Hopefully, someday, someone will. Thank you for being with us. We invite you to like the video and subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments.